Wow, man, the Catholic Man Conference, Johnny Romero. Dude, over the top.
Thank you.
I don't care what anybody says. You can box on my stage anytime you want. You can kick, do that flying triple.
Yeah, the spinning back kick. There you go, the spinning back kick. We used to call that the Widowmaker.
What'd you think?
The hammer.
The hammer. What'd you think of today?
I thought it was a great group. I thought it showed the way, the different groups can come together.
Right.
And have a common conference. We're all Catholics. We had all kinds of different groups here from all kinds of different ministries.
Right.
And, whether it was, all the different ministries generally that exclude the other ones, this conference said, no, we're all Catholic. We're all Catholic, and we don't exclude anybody. If we're Catholics in good standing, that's all we're asking. And we can all collaborate and continue. And where there's unity, there's more power.
Right.
Yeah, that's very important.
You mentioned it in your talk. Scripture, tradition, magisterial teaching. And that's what I try to do with Catholic Men's Fellowship.
Yes.
As long as you're faithful to those.
Yes.
Let's do what we need to do. You can be Catholic Men's Fellowship.
Yes.
That man is you. Crescio, Knights of Columbus, Opus Dei.
Yes.
Eric did today what I have been trying to do for a long time, and we are going to work further to doing what we're trying to do and bring more ministries together to say, hey,
build bridges.
Build bridges.
Yes. Jesus said, when he was challenged then, said, hey, how does he do these miracles? And they said something crazy to him. They go, well, he removes demons, or he delivers people from demons by the power of Beelzebub, right?
Right.
And Jesus looked at him and said, that doesn't even make any sense,
Right.
How is the devil going to work
against himself?
Against himself. And then he says the important verse. He says, a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Right.
If Satan is fighting against Satan, it makes no sense. It's nonsense what you're saying.
Right.
And it again, the devil, who is the divider, that's his plan.
That's his plan. Yeah.
He's trying to divide Catholics into groups so that rather than focusing our guns on him and Team Satan, we are trivializing and we are wasting time in arguing among ourselves.
You're so right. Today in my talk, I talked about the corporal works of mercy.
Yes.
And the spiritual works of mercy.
Yes.
Catholic Men's Fellowship is more of a spiritual works of mercy.
Yes.
Right? We're prayer. We're fellowship. We pray for each other. We unite with each other in fellowship. Knights of Columbus are corporal works of mercy a lot,
Yes.
yet they have what they're now implementing now, core, the heart of Jesus, where they're getting back into more prayer and fellowship, right?
Right. And we can learn from each
Right.
other because the whole faith incorporates both the corporal works of mercy and the spiritual works of mercy. So the Catholic Men's Fellowship and the Knights of Columbus can learn from each other,
Right.
and each one will get better and more effective in what they do. They will be more balanced out,
Right.
and they will learn from each other. When I am not speaking, Gilbert, I have my notes out, and when Gilbert Alderete is speaking, I'm taking notes. When Eric Tafoya is speaking, I'm taking notes. When all of the speakers were speaking today, I'm taking notes.
Right.
I'm not the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, right.
So I'm always learning. Iron sharpens iron, and I will learn from your presentation as I will from Tim Staples, and all the other speakers today here. I was taking notes and learning from them.
Yeah. And that's what we need to do. You talked about masculinity and false masculinity.
Versus authentic masculinity. Virtues, vices, right? Practicing the virtues makes us true men of God.
Right.
That's what makes you a true man of God. How do you conquer vice? When you practice vice, you become vicious. You become an
animal.
An animal.
Yeah.
We need to become like the German Shepherd, strong masculine men, but rightly ordered in virtue. We need to be virtuous men. How do we overcome our vices? by practicing good habits, which are virtues.
Right.
You overcome bad habits by replacing them with good habits.
You know, I had a friend
Does
once.
that make sense?
It makes total sense. And you know, vices and virtue. I had a friend of mine one day, I was talking to him, and he looked at me and he said, you know, he goes, I'm a man, and God understands me. I have needs, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to conquer when I need to conquer, and God understands. And he's a Catholic friend of mine, right? And I told him, do you know who Saint Jose Maria Escriva is? And he says, yeah, I do. And I go, my mom has his book. I go, you know what he says about what you just told me? And he goes, what? And I said, he says, it's the lack of a man within you that makes you act like that. Wow. And he goes, Saint Jose Maria Escriva says that? And I go, yeah, not me, not Gil, because you'll get mad at me if I say that.
Yeah.
But he says, you're not a man at all. It's the lack of masculinity within you that causes you to be what you said up there, a burro,
Yeah.
an animal, a beast. We don't want to live like that.
No.
We need to have a virtuous
Yeah.
virtuous life.
Yes, you're right.
And we can conquer, share.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I just put this up there for everybody to see what real men are. Vices, vices. I just wrote it real quick. Virtues. It says a sinful habit is a vice and is gradually overcome by practicing good habits.
Right.
That makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Vices are bad habits. People that practice vices are vicious. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a vicious. That's a wolf. We want to be the sheepdog, the German shepherd,
Right.
that protects. We can fight these things with this, right? Humility, we fight this. Generosity, we fight this. We fight, well, the virtues overcomes our vices. This is a recipe for heaven and true masculinity. This is a recipe for hell and counterfeit masculinity, right? This is evil. This is good. This is darkness. This is light. This leads to death. Not only physical death, but spiritual death. This leads to life.
Amen.
And it's a choice, a daily
Yeah.
choice that we need to be taught what real men do, what real men are here.
Right.
And there is a time and a place. There is a time and a place, like I said, for men to protect
Righteous
spiritually.
anger.
Yes. Spiritually speaking, is where most of our battle is on the in our lives. But there is a time. I did some kickboxing and boxing. There's nothing wrong with the sport.
Right.
I did, the few times that I did have some scuffles in the street. I don't promote in any way street fighting in any way at all. But, I've been involved in a half a dozen at least or more. And I only was involved in that because they were bullies. In many cases, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Many times, you're not in the right place. But I never picked on anybody. I always despised bullies.
Right.
So whenever I had to defend myself, it was always in response to a bully in some way or another. You get better as you age to be able to not go to areas where that may happen.
Or
right?
disconnect and break off and say, hey, bro.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
No
So
need.
I don't expect to get in any street fights at my age of 58, but I'll tell you one thing. It might happen, okay? I was at stopping a Junipero Serra statue at the San Fernando Mission from being pulled down, okay? And we did stop a riot there. The police showed up just in time.
I remember
there
that.
There was a riot that actually happened. I was right in the middle of it. And I knew it was going to turn out bad because I was going to knock a few guys down. The adrenaline was pumping,
Right.
and they were attacking one of our guys, and I was about to drop some widowmakers and some hammers on some people. And I knew it wasn't going to end up bad. Thank God the police stopped us right at the moment when it was about to break loose.
Yeah.
And they guns blazing, everybody freeze. And again, God saved us because I would have ended up in the front page. Catholics, terrible
Right.
Catholic knocks
We're the
out
bad
a few,
guys. Right.
a few guys that were, indigenous peoples or whoever they were, Antifa. a couple of other organizations that were there, Black Lives Matter, I would have been the bad guy. I would have knocked a couple of people down. I would have hurt them. I would have probably got jumped eventually.
Right.
There was about 12 of us against about 90 or 100. And it was ugly. But again, there's at some point you need to take a stand.
Right.
You know, sometimes you're scared. You need to take a stand. It tells us in... I guess, what was it, in Ezekiel? There is a time and a place for everything. There's a time for peace. There's a time for this. It even says there's a time for war.
Right.
We don't do this. As a Marine, we were the tip of the spear. But we are trying to avoid more war than anybody. Why? Because we're the tip of the spear.
Right.
We're going to be there first.
Right.
So we practiced our craft as much as we could, and we flexed our muscles, and we tried to be as excellent as we could, so that the bully would see us and say, "Oh,
I don't
man,
want to go there.
I don't need to go there. I don't want to get beat up. I don't want to die. These guys are well prepared." That's why we were well prepared. This is why we are well prepared. This is why we do what we do. I'm not, like I said, I never wanted to kill anybody. I know people that are police officers or were in the service and they were in combat, had to do that. It's never something that you want to do.
Right.
You prepare yourself to defend. Somebody has to defend. And, you know, if a warrior is doing his job, a virtuous warrior is doing his job, if a policeman is doing his job and he kills a guilty criminal that's trying to hurt people, like that happened in North Hollywood in the San Fernando Valley. I think it was in the 90s when these two guys came out with automatic weapons out of a Bank of America.
I remember that.
You know, though they got eventually killed by the cops, they were outgunned, but they eventually got killed by those cops. Those cops did nothing wrong. They did what they had to do. They stopped an unjust aggressor from killing innocent people.
Right.
A good Marine that is doing his job and is killing a terrorist that is trying to hurt us did no mortal sin. He defended against an unjust aggressor. It's an act of self-defense,
Right.
and it's protecting the innocent people behind us. Nobody wants to do that, but we do need real men to stand in the breach and in the gap and be able to do that. But most of our battles, 99% of them are going to be spiritual.
Spiritual battle.
But again, if somebody were to attack my children or attack my wife, then that battle would become a physical
and we're living
one.
in a society now.
And we would need to, a good man is not going to sit there and allow his wife or his children to be attacked.
Right.
It would be a mortal sin at that point for a man not to protect his wife and children physically if it came to that. Okay?
And we live in a society now where we have
That
thugs
happens.
out there that attack
It happens,
people.
yes. It does happen. And this is why we always need to be prepared and ready. And sometimes I take risks that I shouldn't. I take risks because I feel I have God given me some ability to be able to pull people at a CVS or at some local store and not allow that person in my presence to steal. Because the checker is the female or the manager is an elderly guy, and I'm just not going to allow that in my neighborhood, and I might get in trouble. God has blessed us at this point, but I have stopped people from stealing because I look at it as like being a good Samaritan.
Yeah.
As a good Samaritan. There are good Samaritan laws, and I think, there's a lot of judges that would be very lenient on me if I got in trouble. Like, hey, what were you doing? I'm trying to stop this guy from stealing in my neighborhood store.
Right.
Hopefully a judge would say, okay, let him go.
No, I get it. I get it.
I've seen people, stop people in stores and tie them up, that are really good at wrestling, and wait for the cops. But again, I'm not advocating vigilantism, but I'm just saying there is a time and a place for everything, and that we do need it. It's okay to be masculine, but as long as it's a virtuous masculinity that's well ordered.
Right.
That's all. That's a well-ordered one. All those other examples I gave you, there's a lot of disordered masculinity out there that is toxic. We're talking about a good, healthy masculinity, and that's under attack because people don't understand it.
Right. Yeah.
They just think all masculinity is under attack, and now we have a bunch of sissy men We can't have sissies, otherwise we won't have a country.
Right.
If we have people that act like women, we're in trouble.
We are.
We're in trouble.
You know, and in the church right now, this conference, the Catholic Man Conference, you know, going back to the spirituality aspect of it, you know, we have a conference with over 200 men here today, and we encourage them to be men of God.
Yes.
You know, be that Catholic man. So what do? They go out and they get inspired here, and they go to Mass tomorrow on Sunday, and then they go out to meetings in the parish level, and then they discover that, you know what, I want to start serving in the church. And even in the church, it gets a little difficult for men to come in because the women all of a sudden say, why are all the men coming forward?
Yes.
We've been working and doing what we've been wanting to do, and now they want to come in and take over.
Right.
You know,
right.
but men have to still sign up to be the lectors, to sign up and do what they need to do, and continue.
I wanted to mention a little bit about Tim. I wanted to mention something about Tim. When I was in a car, it was in a truck when I was working. I worked a job similar to like a UPS driver. All right, at one time like you did. All right.
I was a UPS.
You were a UPS. I drove a package truck like that, and I remember hearing one time I was shocked. I was hearing the Bible Answer Man. I was a big fan of the original Bible Answer Man, as was Tim, Dr. Walter Martin. As a matter of fact, I did a stint in the Southern Baptist when I was in Baltimore because of Dr. Walter Martin and because of his Kingdom of the Cults book. I was just impressed with the man. And Hank Hanegraaff had taken over as the Bible Answer Man at this point, and I heard Tim's voice, right? I've known Tim for a long, long time.
He called in?
No, he was on the show.
On the show.
And I couldn't believe, because I heard Tim suggesting or implying that Dr. Walter Martin was a heretic. He was looking he was reading from the Kingdom of the Cults book, and I remember they were talking about Dr. Walter Martin in his book. He denied the eternal sonship of Jesus. He was saying in his book, no, Jesus is not the eternal Son of God.
Wow.
Jesus is the eternal Word who became the Son at the incarnation. And Tim Staples, in the Bible Answer Man show, said that's heresy. I couldn't, I was shocked. I was like, is that Tim on the radio? I was cheering. He said the truth. And Hank Hanegraaff, you were there. You'd have to tell me the details, how everybody reacted. I could just imagine Tim's calling their godfather, their top theologian, a heretic. And he was right on point.
Wow.
And I was just, man, that was awesome, Tim. That was awesome. And Hank Hanegraaff
denied the Father is the eternal Father.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I have my copy of Kingdom of the Cults at home, and I was like, I looked at the page number, I still have it. I said, Tim Heretic, and I give him all the credit in the world. He pointed that out to me, and I was like, wow, I can't fall into that error. You know what I'm saying? I was just going to tell you, too, our friend, that Joshua Betancourt that asked you that last question, Joshua Betancourt is a convert to the Catholic Church.
Right.
He wrote a book with Norm Geisler. Joshua Betancourt was one of his top students. He wrote a book called Is Rome the True Church? Published in 2007 by Crossway Publishers. And then he became Catholic. Joshua Betancourt, the guy that asked the question last year, a brilliant student of Dr. Norm Geisler, who passed away in 2019. Norm Geisler and R.C. Sproul, who passed away in 2020. He wrote another article or another a part of a book called Evangelical Exodus that was published by Ignatius. Joshua is also a contributing author of that there. How there's an exodus of evangelicals and they're coming into the Catholic Church. So that's another book. Just wanted to let you know who that is so you can make some connections there.
Well,
but you know what?
We got to get another mic. I'm going to interview Tim in a little bit, but we had a sidebar there for a second.
Yeah, for a second.
That's
there.
funny.
But that was great when I heard that there. And you know, I did a conference with this MMA legend in October, Bas Rutten. Bas Rutten is, he was a UFC champion, Ultimate Fighting Championship. We call him Ultimate Fighting Catholic now. Bas Rutten was an probably the top 10 MMA fighters of all time. Okay, was a UFC champion in 1999, and because of an injury to his neck, he had to retire. But he's on fire for his faith. He's come back,
wow.
and I teamed up with him in October to do.
It was a Catholic conference.
A Catholic conference, and it's interesting the way, as we influence some people, they influence other people, and they influence other people, and they influence other people. Back in 2006, there was a priest that had invited me to do a parish retreat in a dead parish in the San Fernando Valley, and there was a man that came up to me after the 12 weeks. We did 6 weeks in 1 year and 6 weeks the next year.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I've never seen muscular Christianity like I saw with you. Yours was full contact, straightforward, muscular Christianity, and we exchanged phone numbers. He happened to be an A-list actor, and we ended up doing a Bible study at his home for like 5 years. Don't want to mention his name, okay, right now, but he became very good friends. We ended up making very good friends with him and Eduardo Verostegui and Jim Caviezel, and all these guys ended up becoming friends and making movies together.
Wow.
My brother was doing a Bible study for some of these actors over in Hollywood called Holywood. It was actors that the same guys who made the movie The Sound of Freedom.
Oh, okay.
All those three guys,
Right.
that made that movie, that little film company with Eduardo Verostegui and Alejandro Monteverde and
Wow.
Leo Severino. Those guys that put that together, we connected them with a couple of other actors and a couple of other people, including Jim Caviezel, and they've all become friends. From our initial meeting, my brother Jess and myself got everybody together and exchanged and got to know each other. And these guys are now making movies together.
That's awesome.
The Sound of Freedom.
Right.
They've collaborated. Jim Caviezel and this film crew, they've collaborated and made these good movies together. You know,
Right.
this
And
guy,
there's more to come, I'm
and
sure.
there's more to come. The guy that made The Sound of Freedom, I'm trying to remember what his name is right now. That's based on, I don't know, what is his name?
He'll tell you right now.
Yes, The Sound of Freedom is based on the true story of, oh my goodness, I can't remember his name.
Either.
Tell me who that is, guys. Anyway, the new guy, he's a guy that I look up to, right? Here's a guy, Tim Ballard, right? He's a man of faith. He's not a Catholic Christian. Hopefully he's on his way. Who knows? Because he's got a lot of Catholic friends
Right.
now.
Influence is good.
Influence him, and that's good. So, again, people like Bas Rutten, who is one of the toughest men in the world, he was influenced by these men. He was influenced by some of these actors that ended up reaching out to him, and then he got evangelized by these actors. So we ended up helping somebody over there. This guy ends up helping this guy, and this guy ends up helping this guy, and
whole
this guy ends up
network.
helping. And we turn around, and I met Bas Rutten, and I'm like, hey, that's one of my best friends, and that's one of my best friends, and that's one of my best friends. And it's all beautiful, right? Because we're one cog in the wheel,
Right.
and we are promoting, we're all on the same side, and we're gonna let Tim take over here. I know he needs to come in here also. But again, this is a beautiful thing. Guys like Tim Ballard and guys like that make The Sound of Freedom. This is what we need to be doing. We need to be. I love the guy. He's been hunting pedophiles for 20 years.
Wow.
And when they attacked him, he goes, "What? You guys are attacking me? Think I'm making this up?" I got hours and hours of actual footage that I was wearing when I killed some of these guys with my bare hands.
That's craziness.
Okay? This is true. Our children are not for sale.
Right.
Who can get behind that?
Nobody should.
Right?
Yeah.
But we have people that are running our
Predators.
country and are running Hollywood that are attacking Tim Ballard and are attacking Jim Caviezel.
Wow.
Yeah. Jim Caviezel was at an event last night he said, say hi to Johnny. My friend was at an event last night with him. And I thought he wouldn't remember me. I saw him at a Dennis Prager I was doing security for Dennis Prager at a Catholic church in Simi Valley.
Oh, okay.
St. Rose of Lima. And I'm sitting there with Dennis Prager, who's a tall guy, who's a Jew, who is a friend. He's very friendly with the Catholic Church. He was doing a talk in a Catholic church about communism. And I saw Jim Caviezel come, and Jim Caviezel said, he was waving. I thought he was waving at somebody. I didn't know he was waving at me. We'd met years before. And then he goes, no, you. So I said, yeah, you. And he goes, I know you, but I forgot your name. Where do I know you from? So I said,
Right.
yeah, we met through these other actors, and we met at this dinner a long time ago. And he goes, oh, yeah, Johnny, right? Johnny Romero. So he forgot my name. And then he said, I want to meet. And then I told Dennis, this is the guy that played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And Dennis's eyes lit up.
Oh, wow.
Dennis Prager's eyes lit up, and he was like, what? I know who this is. He goes, I know who it is. He goes, this is Jim Caviezel. I've never met him, but I know exactly who this is. And they were just like, can I get a picture with? And they both were just like so happy to meet each other.
Oh, that's awesome. And so
Yeah.
going back, that's what we're talking about, networking, and we're talking about men
Networking, that's
getting
exactly
back
right.
together, and that's what we need to do, with Catholic Men's Fellowship and everybody else involved. Knights of Columbus, that man is you, Crescio, everybody involved in ministry, and we have to have more events like this where we all come together
Yeah.
under one umbrella, the Catholic faith, the Catholic Church, and we encourage everybody to be followers of Christ and the Catholic men we're supposed to be.
Amen.
Man, Johnny, thank you for
Thank
being
you,
with
brother.
me.
Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate you.
God bless you,
God
brother.
bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.